Video games are getting delisted at an alarming rate, and the last few years have been brutal. Digital stores made it really easy to pick up new releases, but with that has come a sharp decline in physical sales. Tons of games by big publishers aren't even getting proper prints anymore, so these things just disappear. You ever wake up and suddenly remember Capcom's JoJo's Bizarre Adventure got an HD port? Yeah, well, it's been gone for nearly a decade now, and soon the entire Xbox 360 marketplace is going with it. It's not just Nintendo erasing entire storefronts anymore. Rest in peace, Stadia. This obviously sucks and is counterintuitive to gaming as a long-lasting medium. We've been here before even with my last dive into the delisters, and unfortunately, it's only gotten worse since then. Tons of online-only games from the early 8th generation are starting to shut down en masse. These days, when a multiplayer-only, free-to-play mobile release or games as a service hits the market, it's just a countdown to extinction in my eyes. F099, no matter how fun it is, just like Mario 35 and Pac-Man 99, we all know this is bound to get delisted and shut down at some point, and that's just a crappy way to feel. Most recently, Gundam Evolution, something that was 100% up my alley. One part Overwatch, another the most popular mecha franchise worldwide, Gundam Evolution didn't even make it a year before being announced as shutting down. It's not like it's bad. The visual and audio aesthetic is on point. The units have a lot of variety, and the less hardcore approach had me jonesing. We'll get more into it later, but the fact that they just released another unit in season and we're shutting down in less than a month is crazy. Of course it's Zeta. It's like they're calling me. Video games being taken away is still a new concept, a sad and unfortunate one at that, but it's becoming the norm, and that's just about the worst thing that can happen to gaming as a whole. So I've gone and compiled a whole second video on delisted video games that you can't play anymore, unless you've got the magical power of the internet, emulation, or private fan servers. So if anyone out there is feeling like resurrecting Jump Force, be my guest. So yo, it's Austin, and today we're gonna be diving once again into the world of delisted video games. Last time I somehow managed to willpower some old Metal Gear Solids back into existence, so maybe this time we can do it for Wolfenstein 2009. Yeah, probably not. We'd only scratched the surface previously, so this time I made sure to compile an even weirder list of video games that have been delisted, some of which you've probably not even heard of. It turns out it doesn't matter if you're as notorious as the Avengers. When the man comes knocking, you're getting shuttered. All that passion and years of hard work gone in an instant, or in some cases, safely out of people's reach. But before we get started, don't go hungry watching today's video. Instead, grab yourself a bite with today's sponsor, Factor. Good food on the go. This fall, if you're too busy to prepare yourself a good, nutritious meal, which if you're anything like me, you are, Factor's fresh, never frozen meals are the perfect solution. Skip the mess in the kitchen, don't worry about driving over to the grocery store, just be eaten in 2 minutes. During this autumn season, Factor's doing limited time meals with their fall flavors. Stuff like cranberry pecan chicken and apple Dijon pork chops, all packed with good flavors and the nutritional quality that you need. But beyond that, there's 34 different picks each week that'll cater to whatever lifestyle you have, be it vegan, vegetarian, keto, wanting to be calorie conscious, or just wanting a lot of protein. These things are easy to prepare. You just open it up, unbox it, toss it in the oven or microwave, and stare into space for 2 minutes. Put it on a plate if you want, and kick back. This week, I was a big fan of the loaded bacon and spinach shredded chicken. It's hearty, but in a good way. Factor also has add-ons that you can put in each box, including smoothies like these, which are the perfect little energy boost on the go. Factor is now also owned by HelloFresh, who's sponsored the channel in the past, so between the two, there's plenty of deals that you can get from me specifically for a good meal. So head on over to factor75.com and use yourself Eruption 50 and you're gonna get yourself 50% off your first box. That's 50% off a bunch of good meals today. Eruption 50 for 50% off your first box. Thanks to Factor for the sponsor. But for now, we need to go back to what we do best, talking about video games that time and space are slowly forgetting. Just of the delisted variety, meaning I'm surfing the sketchiest websites known to mankind and risking completely destroying my computer, but I do it for y'all. So why not get this train rolling with some games that I personally think were gone too soon. It feels weird to look at Crime Site, a multiplayer social deduction game that I bought on sale. A new IP by Konami, the masters of regularly releasing console video games with lots of advertising, and see that it was shut down and delisted before I even got the chance to launch it. Now, it just sits in my Steam library with 0.0 hours on record, and I'll just never know how this was supposed to play. Turns out, there's a decent amount of these. Killer Queen Black was a really cool thing that I was all about in 2019 when it came out. In fact, fact, you can still buy it, but only on the Nintendo Switch. If you've ever been to a big convention or one of those lucky arcades, you might have seen Killer Queen. It's that large arcade cabinet that supports 10 players as you engage in a roided up version of Joust, my favorite classic quarter muncher. One person plays as the queen, everyone else are grunts, and you're trying to achieve one of 3 victory conditions. It's a good time. The sequel, Black, hit Switch and Steam with the intent of having a big online community, but due to Amazon acquiring and shutting down their online functionality provider, the developer was unable to make it work and ended up totally removing the thing from Steam and, funny enough, Discord. In fact, no mode here supports bots, so you end up only being able to play locally, which just isn't the same with only 4 people. A really fun experience with nothing else really like it, delisted and gone too soon. Same thing with Harmonix's Fuser, a DJ rhythm mashup game that came out at literally the worst time possible, right when Twitch went hard on the DMCA claims. Streaming for exposure, not today. Fuser is a neat little thing that allowed you to mix songs together to create mashups of different tracks, and you could make it weird. It just, unfortunately, like a lot of Harmonix's things, bombed hard, and I don't think it deserved that. Using a similar structure to song mashups as their fun board game, Drop Mix, Fuser saw Harmonix team up with NCSoft and make something that didn't require a big plastic peripheral. There is a single-player story mode that has you trying to become the best festival DJ, and the gameplay is very minimal, but that's not why you get this. You picked up Fuser to see what LMFAO, Rage Against the Machine, and DMX sound like mashed up.
Shake that.
It's beautiful. Fuser is kind of a meme game. It's something that you goof around with, but that kind of novelty is one of a kind, and for those seeking to make mashups ranging from good to absolutely cursed, there was really nothing better, besides, becoming an actual mashup DJ. But now it's been not just delisted, but had the server shut down shortly after Epic Games bought Harmonix, which seems to just be what they're doing these days. Thankfully, Fuser has a pretty active mod scene who are tossing all sorts of tracks into it with custom videos and stage editions, so if you want Megalovania, you can have yourself some Sans Undertale. Also delisted for no reason, the PC version of Fable 3. Been that way for a hot minute too, ever since the downfall of Games for Windows Live. You can still play it on consoles, so this one barely counts, but as it stands, the Steam version is a no-go. Fable 3 is definitely not the best of the original trilogy. It's not going to be winning any awards for originality, but its co-op brought a lot to the table and made the world feel more involved. You could play big chunks with friends. Heck, you could get married to your friends in-game and then absolutely ruin the economy by buying up entire districts of cities. You just had to deal with one of the strangest decisions for a pause menu of all time, checking the inventory in your mind. A game design favorite. Honestly, I'm just bringing this up because I only have like 2 friends with Xboxes and it might as well not exist thanks to Games for Windows Live. Fable 3 was one of those games that made me really excited for the future of the series, but well, we all know where it went after this. Truly, Lionhead Studios' Joker moment.
Chicken chaser. Do you chase chickens?
Have you ever bought a game specifically because of the publisher name? I'm sure that's why a lot of people bought codename Steam, and also why I picked up God Mode. Back then, if the words Atlas popped up, I was gonna get it.
God Mode is not an Atlas game, it was just published by them. It's actually a little 7th gen co-op shooter made by Saber Interactive and Old School Games, the people who brought us Time Shift, Halo Remastered, and WWE 2K Battlegrounds. An eclectic list for sure, but God Mode is one of their earlier releases, and it's something that I played a whole bunch of that might also kinda suck. I, like tons of others, fell into the Atlas hole because of your personas, Odin spheres, and insert Japanese RPG here, so the publisher brand meant something, I said to myself as copium while buying Operation Darkness. But God Mode was interesting because it was a digital-only release on the PC, PS3, and Xbox 360. The tail end of the 7th generation saw a bunch of cooperative shooters hit the stores, and God Mode was one of those. You play as a cadaver, and it's oops all dudes all the way into Hades as you blast enemies away until you can't anymore, with friends. God Mode is very simple, but sometimes you want that repetitive shooting action, like Dynasty Warriors, but with chain guns and psychotic clown makeup. Granted, there were a lot of games doing this exact same thing. Even better now since this is a decade old, but for the time, I thought it was unique. It was pretty light on content. You can beat all the stages in like 2.5 hours, which is brisk. So it absolutely wants you to pump up the difficulty and run through with friends over and over, because XP is slow. You can use oaths as modifiers to make the challenges more interesting or difficult, aka spongy, and I almost feel like the more I talk about it, the worse it gets, but it's not awful. Especially considering this launched at $10, which was a steal. But let's be real, the reason a lot of people bought this back then, including me, was that Atlas logo. God Mode did stick around for a while though. Atlas kept it listed on all the stores till mid-2019 for reasons unknown to the public. Most likely a publishing deal or low player count. The weirdest thing about this is that the developer and the same exact janky engine were used for R.I.P.D. the game. You know, based off that Ryan Reynolds and Jeff Bridges movie. You know the one. Well, that game came out a mere 3 months after God Mode. This, of course, was also published by Atlas. Atlas, you've made a movie game look amazing. Wait, Atlas is in charge of this game? Well, it can't be bad then. I hope they start focusing on Persona 5.
Of all of those, Fuser's definitely the one that deserved it the least. Poor harmonics versus getting a successful product that lasts on store shelves for a long time. Using licensed music is a surefire way to get your game taken off of store shelves after 3 to 4 years. It's the same thing with games based off of movies and TV shows. Licensed games. Who'd have thought we'd be talking about that?
Stranger Things 3: The Game. Coming out at the same time as the 3rd season of the hit show I've never seen, The Game is a walk through the 3rd season, but in a retro way that looks too advanced for the era the show's supposed to be in. This only stuck around for 2-ish years before it was pulled from PC and consoles for whatever reason. Considering Netflix is still pushing a gaming initiative in the future, we can only assume that was why. Even though it was revealed recently that only 1% of their subs even use the feature. Nice. Speaking of Netflix, how about Voltron? Old Voltron. Voltron, Defender of the Universe, or as it was known in Japan, Beast King Go Lion, was a staple of 80s cartoons. It was one of those things that I caught reruns of all the time, and you best believe it set me up to get used to the legions of color-coded hero troops that literally haven't stopped coming out. I like Ronin Warriors myself, and that's definitely not because it was the only thing on Toonami, so I had no other frame of reference. Well, Voltron Defender of the Universe got itself a PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360 digital-only release published by THQ. And while it wasn't a VR game where you could look at your favorite ships in the first person, it was an incredibly average run-of-the-mill shooter that 9 out of 10 times had you moving the tiniest little robot lying around on the screen. There are lots of games that do this thing better, although thankfully, Dead by Daylight developers Behavior Interactive did a decent job of piling on the fan service. It definitely looked like old school Go Lion, just with that unmistakable 80s Americanized localization flair. This one disappeared around the same time as THQ, so you can probably assume what happened. If we're talking about legions of color-coded superheroes though, it is a shame that Saint Seiya never made a full splash in North America. Saint Seiya is one of the most popular long-running franchises in Japan. It's got a huge audience in Latin America and Europe. If you're American, you might know it as Knights of the Zodiac, an 80s anime that finally made its way to the States in the early 2000s by Deke. Which of course means it's got an intro done by Bowling for Soup. By the time this was airing with its heavy cuts and censorship, I was watching Cowboy Bebop and Tenchi Muyo, and suddenly this cartoony version of Saint Seiya was uncool. Yeah, I'd rather watch Pilot Candidate, and that show sucked. North America missed out on Saint Seiya for the most part, and then suddenly in the mid-2010s, Bandai Namco would release 2 games, Brave Soldiers and Soldier Soul, that actually would get localized. Soldier Soul was like the Third Strike version of Brave Soldiers. This thing had a ton of characters. They were both developed by Dimps, who were behind your Dragon Ball Xenoverses, so you pretty much know exactly what to expect from this. 3D arena fighting with lots of cutscenes and a whole lot of jank, just of the Saint Seiya variety. Well, reviews weren't stellar, and I don't even remember this thing coming out over here. And that's because it was digital only. It's actually got physical copies in Japan and Europe, but they did not give a single frick about this thing popping out in the States. So the only way to get it over here was, well, you don't. Bandai Namco delisted it everywhere but Japan in 2021, so you'll have to do a lot of legwork to give this a shot. Yo, where my Saint Seiya fans at? Is it any good? Keep it on the train of wildly popular anime, One Piece. I actually know this one. My partner won't stop talking about it. One Piece has had several video games going all the way back to the Game Boy Color, and we've actually gotten a good bulk of them localized. But when it comes to being delisted, for some reason, the 3DS RPG Romance Dawn was taken off several years prior to the eShop shutting down. Bandai Namco's published a vast majority of everything One Piece related, but there's a handful of games they've taken down to the license expiring. I don't know how they've got all of these up, but unfortunately, the 3DS RPG is only playable through absurdly expensive US copies. Or emulation. It's what Ace would have wanted.
Fun time's over. It's now pizza time. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. There's actually a handful of delisted TMNT games out there, and last time we tackled Reshelled, the remake of Turtles in Time, and this time I wanted to go a bit deeper, you know, worse. Except I didn't play it this time. I actually made one of my editors do it because I was having fun on my honeymoon in Japan. What? It's gotta get done.
According to Joshi, the digital exclusive Activision published Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Out of the Shadows is not based off the Michael Bay film, although that's not gonna stop it from having some of the ugliest turtles in the franchise. It's like Batman Arkham, but worse, with goons capable of gooning and turning on the finest of dimes. Sure, you can swap between turtles on the fly, but combat is so stiff and nearly unresponsive. You wanna build a combo and do a fancy KO move? You need 10 hits, make sure not to miss after sending one launching, because that'll just end it. Somehow, the PlayStation 3 version was delayed 8 months to fix bugs, but the end result is still what you see on the screen. Quote, I kept nodding off during the recording. Stealth mechanics, in fact, exist, and the voiceover's all over the place. Donnie does not shut up.
Welcome to the stack. Welcome to the stack. Welcome to the stack. Welcome to the stack.
It's got local and online co-op, the latter of which doesn't work anymore, and you'd have to pay someone to play this with you due to how crappy it feels. I think that this would be the worst Turtles game if not for the other one from the same year, but with Metacritic scores like these, tomato, tomato. The Activision era of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles truly was the worst. Also, Austin, f you. Anyways, Out of the Shadows here is a huge dumpster fire that got delisted alongside everything else in 2017 due to Activision abandoning licensed video games, so that makes sense. But earlier this year on May 17th, I guess someone flicked a switch that caused only Out of the Shadows to get relisted on Steam and you were able to buy it. But it was taken down very quickly, refunds were issued, and they took the game back. Gotta avoid, you know, getting sued into oblivion, I guess.
Shell shock.
Well, that sure was a stinker. But in the era of digital-only licensed video games, there sure are a lot of them. And a lot of them suck. There is a huge bounty to pick from, now including one of my worst of 2021, Popeye.
Yes, the game everyone was clamoring for. Picking up hearts from the sky while listening to stock piratey music. Collect letters and yeet Pete out of existence. Developer Sebek sure created a classic. One that got taken down everywhere in 2023 due to the license expiring. I honestly thought it would have been sooner, but hey, at least you can still play their latest, Pet Rock. There was also that one Power Rangers game, no, not Battle for the Grid, an actual decent fighter. I'm talking Mighty Morphin Power Rangers Mega Battle. A beat 'em up so bad I could barely last 5 minutes. You know Megazords and how like cool they are? What if we make all their fights QTEs? There are worse beat 'em ups for sure, but in 2017, after we've had countless classics, this should have been way cooler. It's interesting to put this right next to Shredder's Revenge and see just how much love that had in comparison. At least the developer is still around and making other licensed games like Nickelodeon Kart Racers and Avatar: The Last Airbender. If you're looking for the quintessential awful licensed game based off a kid's cartoon though, we've got a flip sides from Nickelodeon to Cartoon Network. Thankfully there's nothing fanboy and chum chum related for me to tear into. Instead, we've got Powerpuff Girls Defenders of Townsville. Check out this riveting gameplay. Defenders of Townsville feels like a Flash game you would have played on the Cartoon Network website, kinda like one of those old Toonami things. Imagine going home and booting up old crunchy Flash games like Dragon Ball Z Mission to Namek, except you have to pay $10 for it. Defenders of Townsville is baby's first Metroidvania. I mean, they literally get Metroided by Mojo Jojo right out of the gate, and you gotta spend time going through this massive stage without any personality in order to get them back. The menus are awful, probably because this was a port of a mobile title. You've got the option to switch between the classic look or the dance pants art, but it all looks pretty bad. The whole thing only takes an hour to get through, all the while you're having to deal with loud noises anytime you press a button. Yeah, that doesn't get old immediately. At the very least, Bubbles gets herself a Kamehameha. I mean, look, this is a kid's game, but it should have been a free Flash Kids game and not something you pay for. Delisted a year after release.
A single year is pretty quick for something that's not even online, but I think we need to pick up the pace a bit. I don't want to hear anything about licenses expiring or IP holders. I want simply pure unadulterated ass. Thankfully, Afro Samurai 2 obliges.
It is truly noble to place one's life beneath that of your cause.
That's what I'm talking about. It is hard to understand what happened here. Developed and published by totally different people, Afro Samurai 2 Revenge of Kuma. This went from being announced to delisted in a matter of 6 months. Heck, it was barely purchasable for a month before disappearing. Afro Samurai 2 was one of the lowest reviewed games in the year it came out. It made a splash with how terrible it was and was immediately the punching bag of the week. I don't think the first one's exceptional or anything, but it's at least playable and has a followable story and combat system. Afro 2 feels like a fever dream dragging you between segments that barely make any sense while presenting absolutely no challenge. The dialogue is poorly acted and offensive, the technical issues are on another realm of existence, and it's just unclear what's going on at any time. Some button presses register, most don't, and the high-style, memorable cutscenes of the original are replaced with boring stills. It also literally ends with Kuma getting impaled, hard cutting to be continued, and then glitching its way back to the title screen. How'd this get past any testing? Short and sweet, Afro Samurai 2 Revenge of Kuma is really bad, and the publisher went on the book saying this game was a failure, we could not in good conscience do the sequels. Sorry about this. And that was that. They even went and issued refunds. That rarely happens in video games. Afro Samurai 2 was released in late September and delisted late October, meaning this thing was in and out the door in a month's time, which has to be a record. I don't really have much else to say about this, but it is strangely appropriate that the developer's name was Redacted Studios. Truly a poetic moment.
Again, it's like poetry, so if they rhyme.
Speaking of games pulled off of store shelves with speed, we gotta talk about Nintendo again. I'm sorry, I'd totally forgotten last time that Mario 35 was only around for 6 months.
I'm not really sure why, but Nintendo seems to be the enemy of, like, good decisions regarding their consumers. There's smaller things like the Super Mario 3D World Collection being time limited, the Wii U store just shut down, and now they're gonna be disabling online support for that and the 3DS. And then literally, as I'm writing this video, they decide to put out a crazy list of rules regarding their games being played in a tournament setting. Are there more than 200 entrants? More than $5,000 in prizes? Are you selling food and drinks to the people there? Well, then Johnny Nintendo's gonna go all Wizards of the Coast and have the Pinkertons shut down your local. They keep making decisions, more and more, that'll lose trust in their ability to keep games older than the current generation listed and playable. So when you think about Mario 35 disappearing, it's not far-fetched to think that F-Zero 99 is gonna be out of the door by summer next year. The most monkey paw curls this side of F-Zero GX. But as for games that have been delisted, now that both the Wii U and 3DS stores are formally offline, I think we gotta take a brief look at the delisted exclusives of yonder. I hope y'all like shovelware. Cake Ninja 3, definitely not Fruit Ninja. Stoneshire, never seen this before. All joking aside, the Wii U did have a few notable casualties. Affordable Space Adventures is a neat little gem that used the Wii U gamepad in an interesting manner. There's Pokemon Rumble U, which isn't as good as its predecessor, but if you want to run around a small arena bashing cute little monsters with friends, there are worse things to play. Dr. Luigi is exactly what it looks and sounds like, and well, that's about it really. Unless you count Lost Reverse, which was shut down way before. I never played this one, but according to the reviews and audience reception, it doesn't look like I missed out on much. When it comes to the Wii U, the #1 casualty has to be Miiverse. Just the amount of inane things I read on that thing over the years. The classic why can't Metroid crawl, and the absurdly good art you'd see rolling around in Splatoon. And besides that, there's, you know, the fact that if you want to play Wind Waker or Twilight Princess HD, you need a console and a copy or you're shit out of luck. Same story if you're in the mood to play The Legend of Zelda 4 Swords Anniversary Edition on your 3DS. This thing disappearing is a crime. 4 Swords is one of my favorite Nintendo games of all time. You take the classic 2D Zelda formula, split Link into 4 different Links, and embark on a quest filled with shenanigans. Friends holding you back, pick them up and go, throw them into a pit. Triforce Heroes kinda tried to do this, but it was never gonna match the original. This then got a beefed up sequel in the GameCube, 4 Swords Adventure, and then a port of the original came out on the 3DS as part of the 25th anniversary celebration in 2011. They released it for free, so I understand taking it down, but they also decided not to resell it. It was briefly brought back for like 3 days in 2014, but Nintendo is just bleeding money not selling stuff like this. I know multiplayer Zelda isn't for everyone, but this is the type of game I'll whip out at a party without hesitation, especially the GameCube version. Hopefully, Nintendo changes their mission statement and decides to make their older stuff more available going forward, although they don't seem to have an issue shutting down stores and removing games at a whim. Please, give me the thing to buy, Nintendo, I beg you.
Nintendo is obviously not the first to shut down an online-only game. I mean, MMORPGs have been disappearing since the beginning of time. However, now that these things are having a larger presence on consoles, we're seeing more and more disappear. It's pretty crazy. So this one goes out to all of the recently shut down and delisted, starting with Evolve.
Poor Evolve never stood a chance. Once heralded as the next big thing from the developers of Left 4 Dead, Evolve was an asymmetrical competitive multiplayer shooter. One team played as a squad of dudes, the other as a big monster who would evolve over the course of a match. It feels bizarre to talk about Evolve in the past tense, but as of 3 months ago, the last bit of life the game had was completely sucked out, and that was that. Evolve wasn't a bad game, it was just 2K'd. By that, I mean it launched with a ridiculous amount of cosmetic DLC and season passes that had the monsters that you'd want to play as. On top of that, it was multiplayer only, which was uncommon in the mid-2010s for a physical console title, especially at $60. If you want more content, you spend more money. Let's go. Weirdly enough, this level of spending is minuscule compared to what's expected these days from free-to-play games. These things now launch with hundreds of premium boosters, skins, and characters on top of season passes. The idea of a $20 premium skin in Evolve is outrageous, but is unfortunately the norm with something like Overwatch. Anyways, delisted everywhere in 2018, matchmaking servers tossed out in 2022, and a mere 3 months ago, peer-to-peer was given the axe, so a physical copy of Evolve is now best used as a coaster. Video games as an art form, defeated. Evolve lasted several years though, and was a thing that you could buy at the stores. So what about something that was free to play? Now the only way to make money is to pump out microtransactions while balancing a dedicated player base, something only like 4 or 5 games are able to successfully do at a time. As we enter the complete shutdown era of video games, we're going to be seeing a lot more of these going, as every publisher was taking a shot in the dark. Knockout City, probably most famous for the ad that they ran with the Princess Peach lookalike, was a free-to-play dodgeball game, one that I actually had a decent amount of time playing too. Look, it's hard to go wrong smacking people in the face with giant balls. I played it for like a solid weekend, and considering there's like a million games I want to play, stopped there. That was enough for me, but not for EA, who shut it down in June of 2023. This is sadly a pattern. Spellbreak, a free-to-play wizardry spellcasting battle royale game, one I actually played for several weeks with a friend. It lasted 2.5 years. Limniscate, a turn-based and loop-centric first-person shooter, way too galaxy-brained for me, and was around for a year and a half before getting the axe. A cool concept for sure, and I'm sure you can also see these timelines getting faster. How about Rumble Versus, the cartoony wrestling-themed battle royale? By all means, it was a really well-made and fun game. I dare even say it was one of the most enjoyable battle royales that ever hit the market. You made your goofy-looking dude, grabbed power-ups, and participated in some rumbling, which of course means pile-driving people off of skyscrapers. That'll never get old, or so I thought, because this thing disappeared on me after a mere 6 months. Faster than Spellbreak, faster than Babylon's Fall entire lifespan. Thankfully, not as fast as the Culling 2, but it's an outright shame to see all of this work disappear. Lastly, there's one more verse to explore, the multiverses, which is technically a lot. Allegedly returning in 2024, the story of this one's bonkers. Multiverses is the Warner Brothers answer to Super Smash Bros., and it was pretty popular too. It had this amalgamation of different Warner characters, from Bugs Bunny to Harley Quinn to Arya Stark and the Iron Giant. It was also a wild success, with them touting over 20 million players in the first month. Turns out being a Smash clone with recognizable characters will get people to hit the button. I actually liked the 2v2 approach to the concept, as you could make some wacky team combinations. The characters all felt unique, and while I wasn't the biggest fan of the game, it seemed like a lot of people were. At first. It's weird, because this game launched with microtransactions that had seasons with new characters like Gizmo and Black Adam, and then suddenly, Player First Games announced that they'd be taking the thing off of store shelves to relaunch eventually. It was apparently the open beta, and we'll be back another day. I find this hard to believe, although the player counts for Multiverses had tanked, with the original highs on Steam of 150,000 plus all the way down to 600 to 700 in the last week. Apparently, we'll be seeing Multiverses again one day, although I think players will remember seeing something they spent money on disappear a mere 7 months after it supposedly came out. Technically, you can still play this if you have it downloaded in the local lobby tutorial mode, so you can boot up Parsec and let it rip. I hope one day we find out why it needed to go away for an entire year, but more importantly, I hope they get freaky with the Warner Brothers properties. Give me 90 Day Fiancé Neck Guy and Punchline versus Gumball's mom and Kenny Omega. Straight up Crisis on Infinite Earths, but with Guy Fieri. While we're here, we might as well talk about a few of the games and services that are about to hit the sack. It's sad, I know. The most high-profile thing to disappear recently was Marvel's The Avengers, although Crystal Dynamics has said they're going to keep the servers online for the foreseeable future. We'll see. We've already talked about that one to death, and speaking of death, soon we'll be saying goodbye to Friday the 13th, the game I now think of immediately when I hear California Girls. This asymmetrical multiplayer horror title has been having legal issues with licensing for a hot minute, and it's finally being delisted 3 years after its servers were shut down. It's wild how you can go from being a big successful Kickstarter to launch and several years before getting pulled down by the series creator for licensing issues. Developer Ilphonic didn't miss a beat though and has continued to make asymmetrical multiplayer games based on other movie licenses. And their next stop is Killer Clowns from Outer Space, a little less prestigious. As I mentioned earlier, Gundam Evolution is about to hit the bricks as well. I actually had some hope for this one, mostly because I've been a dirty UC Gundam fanboy longer than some of y'all have been alive. That initial reveal was hilarious, because the idea of a Twitch shooter featuring mobile suits was not something we'd seen before, and I think the total package ended up being alright. Just with, you know, some questionable time sinks. The grind for new suits was long. It had loot boxes in the form of supply pods, which is an outdated mechanic these days. Most of the things you get are minuscule too, like banner icons. Although the colony drop profile picture will never not be simultaneously awful and funny. Gundam Evolution could have been more mainstream if it wasn't a bit too little too late. It was throwing itself into the niche hero shooter genre of the Overwatch variety, which doesn't have much space for others. Basically the same thing that happened to Lawbreakers and countless others before it. RIP. It definitely doesn't help that they went and region locked it too, so the place where Gundam's largest fan base is, Japan, can't play with Westerners. That's right, region locking in 2023. Besides just this, Bamco does seem really into the games as a service shtick. They put out Dragon Ball Da Breakers, their Dead by Daylight clone, as well as My Hero Ultra Rumble, a free-to-play battle royale. I can't imagine this lasting any longer than Final Fantasy VII The First Soldier. The list of free-to-plays goes on, so why not give ourselves a moment to shout out the old-school Xbox 360 marketplace. From the Wiper Blades to the NXE, the Xbox 360 store was a place where a lot of fantastic indies were born. Thankfully, Microsoft has done a decent job with backwards compatibility, but with this shutdown, there's a few digital-only exclusives that are going to be delisted and gone forever. Not that you'd have an easy time finding them browsing the console, since, let's be real, navigating this is the worst. A majority of these are going to be Kinect releases or things that were made by now defunct companies. Also, the Xbox Avatar version of Fire Pro Wrestling, which wasn't good anyways. The biggest stars here are Crimson Alliance, a top-down dungeon crawler, those two silly South Park games, Racketeer, Kinect Party, and Diabolical Pitch. None of these outstanding, but still gonna be missing nonetheless. I do like me some Racketeer though. It's like Pain, but my body's the controller.
Oh, we'll get those other coins next time.
I think the best part about the Xbox 360 marketplace was its prices and insistence on demos for everything. Sure, a lot of it sucked, but discovering new games like Castle Crashers, Bastion, and Limbo during their Summer of Arcade event was a highlight of being a kid. While there's not too many exclusives or games that you won't see in other stores that are still available, once July 2024 rolls around, that'll be it. Let's just hope the PlayStation 3 store doesn't follow suit. Losing those PlayStation 1 and 2 classics is gonna hurt. Normal people can't afford the misadventures of Tron Bonne.
All right, one last game for the day, and I think we ought to end this with something a bit more high profile. Once nominated for Best Fighting Game of the Year, and now totally taken offline with all of its DLC, is Jump Force.
Jump Force doesn't look like anything else. That's been the subject of controversy since the day it was announced, as the Unreal Engine 4 looking ass style was not great. The Jump sub-series of video games only gets a release every generation or so, with most of them being pretty lackluster. Except the DS titles, those things rule. Jump Force was Bandai Namco and developer Spike Chunsoft's attempt at taking a ton of beloved anime franchises and shoving them into the end-all 3D arena fighter, and honestly, it's not terrible, it's just not good either. Their concept was simple. You make yourself a little Jump OC, go hang out with Goku, Luffy, Naruto, and a vast amount of characters over 50 years of Shonen Jump and save the world from the Venoms. They're basically like symbiotes. It's totally original here. I think a lot of fans, myself included, were interested to see the interactions between different characters. I mean, they decided to put Light Yagami, Yusuke Urameshi, Dio Brando, and Yugi in the same game. But what we got was a bunch of weirdly animated poses where no one is opening their mouths and just a whole lot of people standing around and just looking at each other. Jump Force. The story is this underwhelming, mediocre thing, but I mean, no one's sitting here expecting it to be good either. Although I, like anyone else, love laughing at stuff like this. What really matters is the combat, the character customization. Can I mash together a bunch of clothes and hairstyles stolen from famous cartoon characters and truly be part of the Jump Force? Sure, just remember every combat close-up of your guy will have them literally saying and doing nothing. Jump Force is Uncanny Valley. The fighting game itself isn't anything special, and all of the console releases have a plethora of performance issues, even on the PS5 and Series X. It's hard to see with hit sparks flying everywhere, and in trying to look fancy with all the CyberConnect 2 style cutscenes, it ends up sacrificing the gameplay. Speaking of, it feels like Bamco just tried to get another studio to make games of that caliber, but it's just aggressively mid, and the reviews at the time reflect that. How it ended up with 2 full season passes is beyond me, especially when the online networking is actual garbage. You wanna do a special attack? Hold up. We gotta think. Anyways, good old Jump Force here got delisted 3 years after release in 2022, with a lot of the online support ending. You can still matchmake with randoms and fight online, but if you didn't grab that DLC, well, too bad. Though props to the developers for changing a few trophies with that update, so the platinum is still attainable. Dear all game developers, please do this. Bandai Namco, if y'all end up making another one of these, I'm gonna need you to make the Damon Devil Bats from Ice Shield 21 as a playable unit. No more joke characters like that dude from Black Clover. If we can have Yu-Gi-Oh! In their card games, I need me some American football.
Look, I just went to Japan and I saw a bunch of Ice Shield stuff, and I accidentally might have picked up every single video game that the series has. So maybe I'll talk about imports one of these days. Anywho, that was yet another video of delisted video games that you can't buy or play anymore. And I wouldn't be surprised if Jump Force is taken offline sometime in the next few years. That just seems to be the way things are these days, and that kind of sucks. But let us never forget that Afro Samurai 2 existed. We must preserve history. Let me know if there's a game I missed down below in the comments, and maybe I'll get to another day, although I imagine give me like 3 years, there'll be a whole slew of things to pick from. If you liked the video, make sure to check out today's sponsor, Factor, who have been great to the channel, or if you want to support me more directly, you can check out the Patreon or buy a t-shirt over at the Pixel Empire. All the money I'll pledge goes directly back into the channel and helps us put things out on a regular basis. So, I've been Austin, and catch me next time when we talk about video games. I don't know anything else. Thank you so much for watching. Special Patreon shout out to Aaron Kwolek, Bennett Oswald, Blackfoot Ferret, Blake Thomas, Cheeks, Chris Shelton, Doug Prince, DX Buster, Dylan Snyder, GM Pinks, Hey Quiggles, Idlevice, Jay Roos, Jacoby Fitzpatrick, Kevin Zanowski, Kieran Arter, Nick Irving, Ryan Talbert, and Vox. Thank you all so much for the generous support. If you guys can't tell from my voice at the moment, I got pretty sick, unfortunately, but I'm here and I got plenty of videos before the end of the year that I'm excited to get out. But for now, I'm gonna take the world's largest nap and it's gonna be great. I'll catch you guys next time. Bye bye.